The content of this episode may not be suitable for some audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Welcome to the Place of Rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. For Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, Virginia talks with Tony DeMaio, who started an organization called Helping Heroes USA. While Helping Heroes USA focuses on veterans and first responders, Tony's goal is to bring greater awareness to the entire population. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Given that October 7th of 2024, we launched Rest and Recover, the theme this year, providentially, was Rest and Recover America. Even the strong grow weary, but those who rest will renew their strength. And given the incidents and the public assassination of Charlie Kirk, I thought what a beautiful time to rally the troops to not grow weary. This is no time to grow weary, but to step into a deep place of rest and reconciling the conflicts that we have within ourselves and understand that we share more as human beings than not. But I heard that you are honoring and celebrating the contribution of our first responders, and you've put your money where your mouth is. And I was so honored by that. I wanted to have you on. Tell us all about it.
Well, I'm grateful to be on. I started working back in this space, suicide prevention, back in about 2015. And I was a consultant to an organization called Project Hero, and we did cycling events across the country. We would do legs. We'd take 150, 200 veterans and we'd ride from like San Antonio, Texas to Houston or Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta. And by those legs, we would go around the country. But the whole process was to be able to get people engaged and have them into a group of folks that they felt some sort of camaraderie with. The suicide process, let's call it, where people becomes very isolated. And then from that isolation, they slide into depression and drugs and alcohol, then suicide. So when I founded Helping Heroes USA back in 2017, our mission is to take and to get people, try to capture them right at that first stage when they start to slip into isolation. And there's just a variety of ways to do that. We've done cycling events. We've done golf tournaments. We've also done golf clinics where we just bring out a group of folks and have teaching pros there and have them putt and chip and use the driving range if they want to get involved in golfing. So whatever type of activities we could do to be able to get some sort of camaraderie where there was a feeling of belonging and not this isolation, because as you know, the depression piece really becomes the downward spot.
Yeah.
And so to try to keep them out of that. So our mission has been to now empower a community. You know, there's a suicide every 11 minutes. It's just
among veterans or the general population as well?
General population. The suicide rate among veterans is around 22 a day. A lot of people feel like that's just underreported. They feel it's more closer to the 40s, 40 a day. But even at 22 a day, that's too many, right? Even at 1 or 2 a day, it's too many. Working in a space, we're looking at empowering more people to look at the risk factors and help identify people that are at risk. And so we do symposiums, we do webinars, and I have a book coming out. I think it's coming out in 2 weeks. It's called The Silent Battle, and it's kind of a guide for family and friends on how to approach this whole subject with somebody and what are some of the identifiers. We look at how do you identify—
The Silent Battle?
Yeah, silentbattle.life.
Okay.
I was just kind of blessed to get that URL .life. I didn't even know that existed, but that's what we have. So
Wow.
We're working with people and we're showing them to talk about, the population itself and the suicide rate is mostly middle age, but now we're starting to see increases in youth. We saw a 4% increase in women and an increase in seniors where we're dealing with chronic pain. And we also think at the youth end, we're starting to see because of bullying that there's been an increase in suicides. So understanding if somebody in your world that's on your radar has got some of these things going on, we work in 3 steps. First step is to identify somebody that's at risk. We spend some time with that. And then how to enter into a conversation with those folks and how to be concerned and empathetic and not judgmental. And then what's the right path? Are you the right one to continue to support them? Can you get them help? Where do you refer them to? Obviously, if there's immediate needs like the suicide hotline and 988, but is it a organization? Is there mental health care that you can get involved with? And maybe you're not the right person, but maybe you can enroll a friend or a support network. So that's the process. That's the path we're on, working with people and trying to throw a broader net. We've seen a lot of money over the years thrown at research for suicide, but it hasn't decreased the amount of suicides. So our community approach, and there's been a couple of modules that have been done, and they show that there's some benefit. There's a statistic that says 85% of the families that have gotten help have been able to stop a suicide. So that's a high number. That's a good number. And that's what we feel. So we feel that giving people a skill set, and give an example of some of the things that are on your radar. Cycling with a group of guys. We were cycling on a Saturday, and we maybe cycled, 65 miles or something. And we come back, and everybody's loading their bikes in the car. And one guy says, "Hey, I'd like to get everybody to lunch today. It might just be the last time we get together." That's a big red flag. That's somebody that's going through a process of saying goodbyes. So that's one thing to look at, somebody doing that. The other thing is if somebody is starting to accumulate, the number one way that people do die by suicide is with a firearm. And that's a high percentage, maybe 70%. So if somebody has a firearm, maybe there's a way you can secure that. Maybe there's a way that you can take it. If somebody's trying to borrow one, that's a red flag. So there's methods that we'd like to try to let people be aware that here's something going on with somebody. They're looking at methods, or maybe they researched online ways to commit suicide. And those are red flags. The other way is that we find people are just distressed. There's money problems that drive people there. They can't cope. They say things like, "I just can't deal with this. There's no way out." Those are all signs. So in a lot of ways, we're just training people to have their radar up. Now, we are working with people that are at risk themselves, but on a broad base, we really like to work with having a lot of folks have their radar up. You've heard the saying where it takes a village to raise a child. We believe it takes a community to save a life. So having a lot of people out there and just having them engaged, those are the things that we work at. That's the kind of information you get in our symposiums and our any kind of workshops that we do. There's also a compounding thing that happens. So working with veterans that are just coming back from being deployed. Sometimes they have PTSD. Sometimes they've gotten PTSD because they have TBI. And TBI is traumatic brain injury, and it can be a first responder veteran. It could be seeing a lot of it in sports now. Concussions cause that, and that creates some mood swings. But we've worked with guys that have just come back from being deployed, and they end up not being able to get a job, not being able to fit in. That starts divorce. Then divorce starts child custody. And so you can see how things start to compound on somebody where they just feel there's no way out. I can't deal with all this. And at that point, you need to stay close to that person. You need to be a friend. You need to support them. We have one young man we were dealing with here had all those things compounding on him. And a lot of times we just pick him for the day. Matter of fact, we were going to a meeting in Irvine, we were based, and we just said, "Hey, have my business partner," I said, "Hey, just come and ride with us. Come on down and we'll go in this meeting and you can hang out. We're going to be at the Newport Post, American Legion Post down there. It's on the water." And just had him with us for the day because we were afraid that day he was going to get the news on this child custody. And if it was bad news, we just, wanted to be around him. So those are the things that we are advocating.
Wow. No, it's necessary because it's not heroic to seek help from conventional standards. The mental health care system is so broken, and they make it very difficult and this is why we've launched the campaign we've launched during the course of the last year. It was brought to my attention that suicide is the number one cause of death among our first responders and veterans. So it wasn't on the job. The risks were not on the job primarily, although obviously they're dangerous jobs. It was, the statistics were just as astonishing that the compounding effect of what they come home with. People think they go to war, but no, war comes back to us in them. And that's not something that is often discussed, I think. So the battle becomes ours, a responsibility now. They went, but now we need to facilitate the healing process.
Well, you're right. And so what happens is they're exposed to atrocity. They're exposed to things that, whether it's police, fire, veterans, things that normally people just don't see in their lifetime. And one of the problems they have is that they keep reliving that over and over again, and it tends to haunt them. And then with that sometimes comes feeling of guilt. I worked with a medic one time, and he was just a brand new medic, and he was thrown into a situation. He was in battle, and there was casualties. And part of his training was to go from one body or one person to the next person, turn them over and check and assess their injuries, and if they were, and it really is also checking to see if they're alive. And through this one time, he skipped a person. He looked at it and he said it was a huge pool of blood, and I skipped him. That night, he started this fear that what he had done is maybe left somebody out there that is still alive. And I'm talking to him like 5 years later, and he keeps reliving that guilt. And at that point, what you really need to do is just listen, and then they can work it out. It's not, don't come to them with a solution. Don't be like you're going to solve that problem. They're talking them out and feeling trust and safe that they can talk to you. I think that's important. Now, one of the things that I get asked a lot is people ask me about my military service. And I tell them, you know what? I was not in the military. I've been involved with the American Legion because they have a thing called Sons, and my dad was in the Navy. And I was really apprehensive about working with veterans because I wasn't one of them. But what I found was that they really didn't care. You'd be sitting on a bike and you're pedaling along, you're cycling for maybe 5 or 10 miles with somebody, and they're telling a story. And what they really cared about is that you listen with compassion. And the reason why I bring that up is because there's a lot of times people are hesitant to not approach a first responder or veteran because they feel like I wasn't one, so I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to let them talk. That's what's important, is for them to get their message out. So I just say that to encourage folks that
Yeah, but that's very important because we can be agents of change. We don't have to wait for the whole workman's comp thing to kick in for them to get professional help. The best help are people in our spheres of influence.
Correct. Oh, you're absolutely right. Through the process that they have to go through a lot of times to get help, it's horrific. We did lose one veteran because he had called us. He was living on the street, and we had a way to get him into a hotel. But in that 24 hours it took to process everything, he did die. And that's one that I remember. And my business partner was involved in that also. And, it just happens,
So what happened with your business? You got a call. You and your business partner got a call.
We got a call, and we knew that we need to get this guy into some sort of housing, and we have ways to get him in hotels. We have vouchers. But the time that we went through the process took about 24 hours to get the voucher. He had died by suicide. So that it just happens. It's just a system. And that's why we advocate to get so many people to get involved. So there's guys out there people waiting for the system. And the system can't facilitate everybody. So we need individuals to do that.
Well, I'm thankful that you shifted gears and really expanded your focus. You mentioned, or Jonathan mentioned to me, beyond just writing checks to doing something about it and getting more practically involved.
Yeah, we're excited. We call our people, people that get involved, we call them support angels. And the book that's coming out, it just really breaks everything down. It gives you a way to understand the phrases to start conversations to, for example, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, pick a time. Don't just do it off the cuff. Pick a time that's a good time and it's quiet and you're not interrupted. There's not other people around and you can really get into a conversation. Don't be judgmental. Don't come with it from, I've noticed this about you It's just maybe saying, I'm concerned. It seems like, maybe you're withdrawing. It feels like you're getting withdrawn. Start the conversation that way. You start to see somebody that's really letting themselves go, their appearance, they just don't care anymore. That's a sign that they might be on that slippery slope. Uh, we have a story where we had a woman whose husband was a highly decorated law enforcement. He was in law enforcement, and he started giving away his medals and things and possessions that were important to him. It's a sign. And she was able to engage in that conversation. One of the things I do, a very important point is there's a stigma out there that says, if you bring up suicide to somebody, you're going to start them thinking about it. And that's not true.
Oh, no.
Don't let that be an excuse for not engaging in that conversation. That's not what it's all about. Talking about it just gets it on the table. It doesn't all of a sudden, somebody's not going to go from never thinking about suicide to then all of a sudden thinking about suicide because you brought it up. So don't let that be a barrier to engaging.
And practically, as you were speaking, I was also thinking, when you see people pulling away and isolating, find a way to invite them for a taco, for a walk at the Balboa Island, a hike in Silverado Canyon, or whatever your local areas of activity are. Simple things that you can include them into things you're doing, because sometimes that's the port of entry. More often than not, that's the port of entry to a conversation. And if they say, no, I'm tied up, say, oh, what are you up to? Oh, I'm looking for parts for my truck. They sometimes get into these inner workings of all their little to-do things. And you can say, oh, that's fantastic. Do you mind if you want me to bring a taco over and hang out and watch you do that? Or tell me about it. Where'd you ask them questions about what they're telling you they're involved in? Find any way of communication.
And there's a lot of groups out there. We have a group down here. I'm in Palm Springs. There's a group of guys.
That's wonderful. You're close.
Yeah. Well, it's an hour and a half away. But we have a group, like every Tuesday morning, they meet at McDonald's for coffee and breakfast or whatever, and so they know they're accountable. They know if somebody's there or not. There's other groups that get together for breakfast, and it could be that simple.
Yes.
It's a matter of getting engaged and having somebody have something that they're accountable to, depending on, Tuesday morning I have breakfast. Tuesday morning I have coffee with the guys. Now, what happens also is that from the person that's at risk, they don't want to share, they don't want to burden people around them. And that's okay. So if you identify somebody that's maybe at risk and they just really don't want to talk about it, then you might enroll somebody. You might get, let's say it's a vet or first responder. You might get somebody else that they feel comfortable sharing with. So don't feel like you're the point person and you've got to carry the burden of this entire process. And that's what we encourage, to look out and see if it's just somebody just doesn't want the burden of family. They don't want to tell you some of the atrocities they've seen, and find somebody. And it's easy. There's 12,000 American Legion and VFW posts around the country that you could find somebody on a local bet. There's local fire stations everywhere. You know what I mean? So just reach out. I guarantee you, if you go to a fire station and say, my husband, my friend, my whatever is a retired fire person, and I really think they're thinking about suicide, is there somebody that can help us? Right away, they'll be on it. They'll help. Same thing with the veteran population. So those are just things that are simple, but can save a life. And so that's our position.
I like it. You've made it very simple and very practical and very user-friendly.
That's because I'm a simple guy, so it just made it easy to be simple. It's just...
That's good. Simplicity is good. But the initiative is to end this suicide cycle here in the near future. And I think we can do it. We just have to be able to change the narrative. And I think we're doing it. Together, we're all doing it. And we're able to invite people in practical ways to collaborate with us to do this, because we can't wait for the government to solve our problems. So I know that in our practice, we decided that we would work with the general population and the first responders, that we had to really initiate a program to address the growing needs of first responders, because firemen and policemen, for sure, and veterans we've known for some time, they're taking their lives, and that's not acceptable. When we call them, they make themselves available in nanoseconds. When they call us, and it takes a lot for them to call us for help, the system's broken. They get denied by workman's comp, delay for months. And I didn't believe it at first, but I'm living it firsthand. So your partnership, your collaboration, just the fact you reached out to us, really, we're very thankful. And it's a privilege to have you on so we can share your information and let people know how to get a hold of you. And when your book comes out, I'd like to make it available to everyone.
Oh, we certainly do that. I really appreciate it. I think really for the most part, what we run across is not an unwillingness for people to be involved, but it's a not knowing how to.
Right. They don't know how to.
And that's what we're advocating is the how to.
Well, it's messy. Mental health care issues that come from trauma, this kind of compounding trauma, it's very messy. People don't know what to do. You're absolutely right. But the system does. The system proclaims to know what to do. And the system's broken. And I think that's what we have to face and address and engage in the arena of ideas to displace that because it's not acceptable.
Yeah, there's so many things that we know from the inside that I won't share, but how it's just, there's problematic. This where we're located out here in the desert, and for veterans to get to a VA, and to get their appointments. And if they're up in, like in Brawley area, they have to go to San Diego, and just logistically how difficult it is for them to get help and how frequently they can get it. So I think you're right. I think there's a bridge that we can build as civilians to professionals that can help. There's a network that we're working with right now of professionals that are really working with people with PTSD. It's sort of a pay whatever you can afford. If you can't afford anything, that's fine. If you can afford to pay, fine. Like our symposiums are free. I never wanted a financial stress to be a barrier that somebody couldn't go that needed help, or a family that wanted to help somebody, but they couldn't afford to go. So we have sponsors and we support that. So whenever we do a symposium, it's no charge. We also work in various industries, and we talk about veterans, first responders, law enforcement. The construction industry has a very high suicide rate. You have isolation. You have sometimes guys going out working on a job. They're totally isolated the whole day, and drugs and alcohol are prevalent. We're actually working with the Association of Builders and Contractors. We're doing a symposium for them in their Riverside office. So we're right there in their facility doing it. So there's things like the medical profession has a high suicide rate. There is entertainment industry. So some industries that we're attacking, and we're going out, we're talking to them to maybe do our symposium on site, like we're doing with the contractors and builders. And I think that's a way to help us get the word out to bridge the gap, to get them into help.
The symposiums, where can people get information on all this?
Our website is helpingheroesusa.org. And when you go on there, it tells where the events are and where they, locations, times, things like that. We've got some coming up next year. We use venues like the Palm Springs Air Museum, which is like a great venue because you get to tour the museum, then come to a symposium, and some of them that we do are at larger American Legion facilities,
Beautiful.
So those are out there. I found that they're limiting for us. And that's why the webinar on getting the book out and getting more information out, the symposiums are there's big country. It's a big country and it's tough to get everywhere. But
and the symposium, in short, it's just to save lives, to save the lives of veterans and first responders.
Yeah, they run about 2.5 hours, and some of the things that we do and work with is framing the questions, building trust, how to listen, not be a problem solver, but how to listen to a story. And I'll tell you, I've listened to stories. I told you one about the medic. I've had guys tell me stories of things that have happened to them that are just awful. That telling of it has healing, and then supporting them, and not being judgmental, not try to fix it, but just listening. And that's just what I think is a real first step to throwing a broad net to deal with this crisis that we have. And, when I tell people there's a suicide every 11 minutes, they're shocked. They're just shocked that there's that much in the country. They don't think of it. But I find out, just by talking to people, they've all had somebody in their group. And we say that every time there's a suicide, there's 135 people affected. And it's just amazing of how many people have had it. What we want to do is we want to eliminate that regret. Now, this is the thing for somebody that has had a loved one commit suicide, and they carry this regret forever. And a lot of times it's, if I only knew, I just didn't know. They didn't recognize the signs because they just didn't know.
Just last week, in the last week, we've had 3 deaths connected to the guys. Our guys are doing great. The Rest and Recover America program is fantastic. It's phenomenal. It's just been phenomenal. So we have had a great success with our mental health care program, but we like you know that the conversation needs to scale beyond our walls, and the conversation needs to expand beyond conventional treatments.
I want to thank you so much, Regina, for letting us get our message out and providing us this platform through the podcast. And certainly when it's produced, we will push it down through our network also to let people know.
What you're doing is beyond the veteran population. We're living through secondary trauma, and we're experiencing things that men used to just see on the battlefield. We're seeing them through social media networks every day. So I appreciated your message, and I immediately said, we've got to make this happen, because I don't think people fully understand what a serious problem suicide is. And I'm surprised it's only every 11 minutes. I think those are conservative numbers between you and I. I could be wrong.
You're right. It's the reporting process. An auto accident that may have really been a suicide, but it's reported as an auto accident. So there's things like that happen that people do that fall in the suicide range. It's also in some of the organizations, suicide's not reported as a suicide because of the fear of losing benefits for the family. So there's things like that so it's not an accurate reporting. I mean, the best numbers we can have. Truth is this, there's just too many anyways.
That's right.
No matter
It's
what.
too many.
No matter how they
That's
report,
why No, that's why I can't wait to read your book, because there's too many and we need all hands on deck. This expands beyond your veteran program. With all due respect, it's the need to step into this place, into this dark space, and know that we have the natural resources to turn this thing around in one generation. So we can rest in the truth of a thing. And people like you are going to equip us in very practical ways of what we can do as civilians without waiting for the government to fix our problems. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's peer-to-peer programs. They're good, but they do have some blind spots in them. And a lot of times, whether it's a first responder or veteran, may not want to share with another first responder or veteran because they don't want to seem less than. They don't want to seem weak.
Or jeopardize their job, jeopardize their future.
That's true.
Jeopardize a reentry point. Yeah.
Yeah. So the person that's close to them may not be a peer. And so there's programs out there where there's veterans calling veterans every day, but the closest person to that veteran may be somebody else. I just got an email just an hour before we came on this podcast from somebody inviting me on their podcast where their best friend had committed suicide. And they were reaching out and they were saying how shattered they were. And neither one of them are military. Neither one of them are first responders, but it still happens. So we feel the urgency to be with the first responders. We feel the urgency to be with the veterans, but we want to be in the civilian population.
That's right. No, this is becoming a national crisis. Mental health care issues are a national crisis, I think, of the utmost importance. How can people reach you, if you don't mind mentioning it one more time?
Helping Heroes USA, our website is helpingheroesusa.org, and there's all the information on there. The book that's coming out, there is a URL. It's silentbattle.life, and I think that's going to be on Amazon in 2 weeks. They're working towards that.
That's wonderful. Silent Battle. I would be honored if you would come and address our group of first responders at your convenience, and we'll plan a number of maybe different interviews and things that we can arrange for you.
We'll see if we can make it happen. My wife and I, and then I don't know about Copa Bear. We can, he's quite a networker.
Is he your security dog?
He's a service dog. He's my service dog. I had TBI. My background is that I was a football coach. I started off in life as a football coach. While I was playing football, I had about 7 concussions, but I had a severe cycling accident that they found me unconscious in the street. And I was out riding alone. From that, I got some TBI, and the doctor recommended I get a service dog. So Copa Bear became my service dog. So I can tell you firsthand, talking about for PTSD and TBI, some of the things that you go through. And one of the things is a frustration of a memory loss. Right away, you have a memory loss. And the thing I noticed the most is I could not remember any phone numbers. I couldn't remember area codes. And you have to go into a system of training your brain and going through some of these brain games. And there's a lot of them online now that help. And that was, to me, was the most notable thing about the TBI was just the loss of memory, just not being able to recall. And through working through that, working through the process, I could see the improvement.
Good. We can help you with that. We help facilitate healing.
That's
and
great.
One of the resources we called R.E.S.T. There's R.E.S.T. franchises all over the country and the world now. But it's fantastic. It's a non-invasive acoustic mirroring system that helps the brain heal, and it sees itself and corrects itself. And it's pretty phenomenal technology. Lee Gerdes passed last year, developed the technology, and I can't tell you, the results are remarkable. It would be an honor to serve you, Tony. We need to lock arms, all of us, even our listening audience. We all need to do our part. Time, talent, or treasure.
That's right.
We all have something.
That's right. That's right. I love that. Yes. I have a pastor who used to preach on that, and he did a great job on time, talent, and treasure. My home church is at Shepherd of the Hills in Porter Ranch. Dudley Rutherford is my pastor. He has a TV show called Lift Up Jesus. But, down in your backyard in Saddleback, years ago, I was at Rick Warren's pastor seminar with 3,000 pastors. It was quite an experience. And with 3,000 guys stand up and sing Amazing Grace, so in the dry eye in there, it was very moving, and he did a great job. He was one of the first mega churches. And his formula, I just remember so clear. He stood there and he said, in order to grow big, you have to get small. And what he was talking about was starting small groups, home groups, whatever they call them, cell groups, whatever churches call them. At Shepherd, we launched 500 home groups at once.
Wow.
So being involved in that whole process of the formula of how to put that together, and I took a lot out of that, and building a living organization like what we're doing is the same kind of thing. In order to get big, we have to go small. We have to do these small symposiums. We have to do these meetings. And, at that point, we create inertia. If you look at just what happened with Charlie Kirk's organization, 3,500 campuses around the country. 3,500.
Just escalated with 38,000 requests in 48 hours to expand.
Yeah.
Light is unstoppable. Life is unstoppable.
That's right.
The desire to protect and advance it is unstoppable.
I consult to a Christian school out here. It's called Desert Christian Academy. Been around for a long time. And we were just on the phone this morning about saying, what are we going to do? Are we going to hold an event for all of our students in the local community? Because there isn't really a Christian school out here that's done anything for that. And so one of my calls this afternoon is to get back on the phone and see if we're going to schedule that this Saturday to have a memorial. I think it's important that a Christian school takes a position, for what he stood for and what the cause was, a turning point. So we're excited about that. I mean, when you listen to his wife and what she had said is that you don't know what you've done, just exploded this thing more than could ever be done. Yeah, we're big believers, and we're behind that cause. And I think it in our work, we talk about how having faith can take somebody out of that suicide mode.
Completely.
Faith is an important component. And we also ask people that have lost a loved one. There's a rate of suicide when somebody, let's say you got a couple that's been married 40, 50 years and one partner dies, is to try to plug that other partner into a bereavement program. And a lot of churches have bereavement programs. Whether you go to that church or not, they still have those ministries. And that's one of the things we recommend is to get somebody into that. So if you have a relative that's happened for, is to get them into a bereavement program where they can grieve and not get depressed and not get in isolation. So those are some of the things that there's all kinds of tools out there. There's all kinds of ways to help people.
Yes, there is. Thank you for sharing a few with us, and just God bless you, and may your efforts multiply exponentially. I look
Thanks.
forward to getting to know you.
Thank you so much for having me. I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.